Yeah. So is it? we are going to be able to talk to her. Does anybody have her personal phone number? I gotta call her later.
She just said she signed in.
2. The workshop is called Order. We have first item number 2 on the agenda, report on priority campus, Best Collins and Sneed.
Good evening, Board and Mr. Chambers. Tonight we are coming back to the Board to provide a update on 3 of our priority campuses. We have shared a ton of information with the Board, but we know that there is no better way to share what's happening on campuses than to hear directly from our school leaders. So I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Page. Dr. Page is going to make a few remarks, and then we're going to have our principals come up and begin their presentation. Thank you.
Good evening. Do you know why these 3 campuses, Best, Collins, and Sneed, are labeled as they are? Do you know how the campuses and their support partners are addressing the scores through adult and student learning? Do you want to know what to tell your constituents about these 3 campuses? Well, you've seen the plethora of qualitative data in your packets, and they are coordinated, their page numbers are coordinated on the slide from board notes. Now prepare to hear the qualitative side as we traverse the maze of our hearts and life's work. Get your pens and paper ready, because you may have questions. However, I implore that you save them until after each principal has completed sharing her part. As a result, you may have to write your questions down. Our first principal to present is Ms. Renee Greevy from Best Elementary.
Good evening, Board and Mr. Chambers. I just wanted to start by thanking you all for having us tonight so that we could come and kind of paint the picture and tell the story about our campuses. As you know, I'm at Best Elementary, and the presentation, the pages that I have, I separated them by talking about meaningful work and meaningful relationships. And so I wanted to start out by talking about meaningful work for our students. For the past 3.5 years, our focus has been on SIOP and behavior strategies with our students. And we chose to focus on SIOP because of the population that we have at our campus, and we have high population of second language learners, and we strongly believe that the strategies with SIOP benefit any learner, so we knew that that was a great place for us to start. However, this year we've shifted to focusing more on reading instruction and on writing instruction.
Excuse me, Ms. Renee, and I know I'm going to hold questions, but when you use terms like sign up, I understand them. All my board members do not. So
Sure.
That's a solid education needs.
Sure.
Thank you.
For SIOP, sheltered instruction strategies. And these strategies are specifically in place to help students that speak other languages at home and that are learning English, but they also benefit any learner and are great strategies for anyone. So, but like I said, we've shifted over to focusing on reading and writing this year. And one of the things I want to tell you about Best is our students really need to have teachers that think outside the box. And so our teachers are really good about incorporating unusual strategies and activities with the learning so that it can keep the students meaningfully engaged in learning. And also, another interesting fact about our students is our mobility rate. For instance, this year we have 413 new students that have enrolled out of our 770 students. And so that's roughly 54% of our student body is new this year. So you can imagine what type of new learning has to occur constantly. At a campus that has a more stable population, you know, typically at the beginning of the year, teachers spend time on routines and procedures and how the school works, especially for the students that are new. But for us, our teachers are constantly happy to reteach those things as students come and join their class throughout the year. So that's also something that we have as a challenge. One great thing that we've had in place this year is with our interventions for our students. We started the year like fully staffed with all of our intervention positions, so we've been able to provide math, reading, and English language development for our students that speak a second language. So we hit the ground running. I want to say it was like the first week of school or second week of school that our leadership team met, pulled data, and immediately started creating the groups so that we could get started as soon as possible. And then when we shift to thinking about meaningful work for staff, last year we focused as a campus just to build unity with our staff, writing our collective commitments. And so we looked at the basic branches of a school, and together we drafted these collective commitments that we wanted to stand behind that really embody who we are as educators. And so that was a really powerful exercise for the staff to go through and actually draft this document together. And so we wanted to continue that work this year, because last year when we look at collective responsibility, it's great to know that you're responsible for the work, but this year we wanted to layer in that we believe we have what it takes to positively impact student achievement. So we've gone a little bit deeper and focused on collective teacher efficacy. Also for planning this year, as we began the year, we started to see in a couple of different grade levels that the activities and things that the teachers were bringing to include in their lesson plans weren't completely aligned with the TEAC. And so they were kind of starting to stray a little bit away from what is it, is this going to be something that's going to help our students to be successful with this particular TEAC? And so we restructured our planning document so that the teachers are beginning with the end in mind, looking at what an exemplar would look like. If the student in my class mastered this strategy, what is that going to look like? And then that really allowed them to stay on track and stay focused a lot more as they went backwards and then planned out the lessons for that week. And one of the things that I really appreciated this year with our cohort walks, typically in the past as principals, we've joined with a feeder pattern of principals, and we just visit each other's schools and walk around and give feedback, and hopefully you get some new learning. And this year we got to choose one of our cohorts to participate in, and knowing that writing is the subject that we struggle with the most, that's the one I chose to participate in. And so Sarah hosted that over at Kennedy, and they've had tremendous growth in their writing program. So that was a wonderful opportunity to get to see, like, what is this going to look like, completely, orchestrated beautifully with the teachers who have been part of the process of planning it. And immediately following that, I met with our language arts specialist, and then she scheduled a meeting to go back to Kennedy to go and meet with the specialist. And then they talked about how they began that process, and knowing we're not going to be able to implement that whole thing that school had already started. So we said, what are some bite-sized pieces that we can bring back to BEST and implement now? So that was a very valuable part of our work. And continuing meaningful work with staff, I just wanted to share some stats with you. We have 8 ACP teachers at BEST, alternatively certified teachers, and 6 of those are teaching in either 3rd or 4th grade. So those are the grades where the students take the STAR test, and we have teachers who, most ACP teachers require a lot of extra support, especially when they first start. So you can imagine the manpower that it took from our leadership team to provide the support for each of those teachers so that they could start the year successfully and hit the ground running. We also had 3 new specialists this year, and 1 specialist that was out on a medical leave, and so that kind of required more support on administrators' part to continue to support and grow the specialists in their new roles. And then we also had 3 new interventionists too. But I just wanted to take you through an example of a typical alternatively certified teacher starting in Alief. We require the first 35 hours of participation for professional development in Alief U. And then with our sheltered instruction being a big priority at best, we would like the teachers to go to that training as well. That's 21 more hours. If they teach reading, we have new TEKS this year, so at least 7 hours for that, and then at least 7 hours for the new adoption for language arts. And you're looking at close to 80 hours of professional development, and the teachers may be having very little exposure to content or how to write a lesson plan or how do I set up my classroom. So then, even though they came with a lot of knowledge, we were still going to have to put in a lot of work to support them. But now we've begun our Blitz for STAR, so it's what we call all hands on deck. And we have a content specialist supporting in each classroom in 3rd and 4th grade in reading, writing, and math, either co-teaching with the teacher or facilitating small groups at the same time that the teacher is. And so students can get twice as much practice in learning. And then our leadership team also has stepped up to do tutorials. And with our priority grant, we've been so lucky to have the money and the resources to provide, great materials for tutorials, but the teachers overall weren't interested in staying after school to do tutoring because they're just overwhelmed, overworked, and tired. So again, our leadership team has stepped up, and they're staying after school to help with some of the tutorials. So you can imagine the stress that they're under, not only doing tutorials, but teaching in a classroom every day, and then they're still having all the responsibilities that they normally have to facilitate planning and PLCs for their teams. And then we're going to move on to meaningful relationships, because that, I feel, has always been a strength for us at Best, is our culture, and we know that our teachers pour their heart and soul into our students and to their planning and preparation. And so we do everything we can from the administrative side to fill their buckets. We want to do little things along the way to keep them motivated, to keep the momentum going, and to continue to help them see the positive in the hard work that we do. And despite that, this year, we put out the letter to staff just to see what are your plans for next year, just kind of get an idea for staffing. And for us, out of our 40 teachers, 19 teachers have said that they would like to have a change. And, of the teachers that I've spoken to, I've tried to go and speak to people personally. They're just ready to experience a different campus. They're tired, and they're just ready for a change. And we have, thrown in there too the people that have lived too far away, that the drive's too far, and so forth. And for one example, we had at the beginning of the year, on the second day of school, one of our kindergarten teachers resigned. And so we had a vacant position there, and we had a teacher in 4th grade that was struggling. Typically, and her background was more primary. And so we made the decision to switch her from 4th grade and move her down to kindergarten to take over that class, which then created another vacant position in 4th grade. So we had to move a teacher that was self-contained in 4th grade to replace her, and then we had to take her homeroom and dissolve it amongst those two 4th grade monolingual positions. Later in November, we ended up having to hire another teacher to replace, so we could break apart those two classes and have a third class. So we had an alternatively certified teacher starting in November this year. So that's just like one example of one of the things that we take care of. And then, of course, it's always such a great celebration, I think, for us, how we build relationships with our families and communities. And we have been so happy with partnering up with Brighter Bites. It's brought out a lot of families and parents that I think would maybe have not felt comfortable coming up to the school, but they were really interested in participating in this program. LSEC 9th Grade Center adopted us this year, and every month they come with some sort of treat. They started the year bringing uniforms. They came with school supplies. Students came and read to our students. They brought Valentine's. So it's been a great boost for our students to see that other people around in our community that really care about them. And we're excited too to host for the 3rd year the National Action-Based Learning Training in June. So we're excited about that. And I would like to continue to bring some fun programs like that to Best that will help parents maybe want to stay, and we could reduce our mobility a little bit because they love our school, they love seeing their kids come home happy, and also seeing them being successful. And then just a few considerations for you. Safety always is a priority for us, as it is for any principal. And we've had a couple of I don't know what you would call it, very important safety issues, concerning situations in the past week or two. And it just really raised our awareness like this, we just really need to be on our toes at all times, and because safety is such a priority. So of course we would love to see an officer at our campus, and I know that the parents would support that as well, knowing that that would be a visible support to keep their children safe. Flexibility is something else. As we transition to focus on different things throughout the year, and even from year to year, you know, I would love to be able to have the flexibility to maybe take a specialist and rename their role into something else that is a need for our campus at that time. And then equity, I absolutely appreciate your action behind that in the past in allowing us to have additional staffing, and also, you know, paying attention to our class sizes so we can keep those low. And as we move forward with one-way dual and even just teaching in general, it's very important for teachers to be blocked. So when we look at staffing and our staffing is low, our enrollment's low, and we would lose a position that would cause a teacher to be self-contained, that's a lot of pressure on that teacher. And when I talked about the 19 of our 40 staff members that are considering making a change, all of the teachers that are self-contained this year said that they want to make a change. So if you could just consider letting us have even numbers on each team so that teachers can be blocked. And then, as I spoke about before, the alternatively certified teachers, as they come in, they really need to have a differentiated professional development path that would support them as they step foot on campus with what they need immediately, you know, and then we can build in some of the other pieces that Alief offers. And that's all that I have.
Renee, could you, I'm sorry, I don't call you by your last name again. Could you please share, we said the action-based learning for those, I think myself and Mr. Moreno may be familiar. Could you share what that action-based learning?
Absolutely. Action-based learning is something that's part of our culture at BEST, and we believe in the power of allowing the students to move and improving their behavior, improving their retention, and allowing them to stay engaged and focus longer on the content. And we have action-based learning labs where the classes go and have movement activities where they practice content as they rotate through the different stations. But we also have kinesthetic furniture in the classrooms that allows the students to move right in their class while they're learning. And you know, like when you look at STAR testing, the classes that had kinesthetic furniture versus the ones that didn't, the students that had the opportunity to pedal while they were testing stayed engaged a lot longer than the students who just had traditional desks.
Well, I wasn't aware that they were able to use that in the STAR testing.
Yes, ma'am.
I have something. I have a few questions. I just want to get another word of opportunity. Okay, let me thank you, Ms. Renee, for the presentation, and again for you and the principals that are coming forward, even for the ones in a few weeks. Just thank you for allowing us to listen to you what's happening on the campus. You know, many of us have visited the campus. We were there before, and you know, you kind of see the work that you're doing. And it's a tough area. It's a tough community, and it's a tough day every day for you. Some of the questions I have in the presentation, and it kind of relates to all the data that we received in the last few days in regards to the data. I made it very clear. I sent an email to the superintendent and I believe to the deputy and a couple of board members about concerns with the scores. passing isn't great. You know, I know in some of the questions was like in December, example 21%, I'm just talking about math, third grade math, 21%, and then in March, 22%, you know, doing this, and then here we are a few weeks away from the test to see how this can do. I'm just not sure how to do it. So my concern is not necessarily, my concern is worried about the test and the scores and how it's going to come back towards you, but it's the process. You know, I hear about the process, and one of the things I was hoping to hear in there is more of the support that you're getting from central office, from the coordinators, from the directors, from the areas, from the deputy, and then also from the superintendent. To be that I didn't really get a feel for that. I'm sure it's happening. I just didn't see that or present that in your presentation. I know one of the concerns was regarding safety. If you have meetings, and please, you can throw some questions on this page. Is regarding safety and the police officer and so forth. And I'm sure there's been discussion. I'm sure the police department and the chief has probably got involved in some of that. And I've had conversations with our superintendent many times in the last several months about give us new ideas. You know, each campus is separate. What's going to work for your campus? You know, and bring forth. And that's what I wanted to hear. That's what I'd like to see. And I'm not really getting that actually in this presentation. Like what's happening? What's the plan? What's the turnaround? Because a year ago we were at the same place, and it seems like very similar for the year. I don't know if these programs, when they started, if they were new. I think the 9th grade center kind of adopted y'all. I don't know if that was this year. There's some new things. But what strategies? What's happening? What monitoring is being done to be able to turn that around, give you the support that you need? To lose 16 out of something teachers is devastating. You know, is devastating. You know, and I don't know how many administrators would stay in that position, knowing that they're going to lose all that staff. And I know you have a commitment, and I know you live it, you love it. I mean, I see, you know, I know you from my kids went to school, and you know, other teachers as well, so I know what you do. So I just.
I'm happy to answer that if I didn't get that to you. When you talk about the support has always been there for BEST. It is a phone call away, and someone is either picking it up right there to answer, they call back immediately, or they come to BEST, whether it's fixing the front door, or helping us disaggregate data after DCA, or helping me work with a new specialist that's, you know, over 4th grade writing for the first time. So I can't speak enough for the support, because it is always there. We rely on our school improvement specialists to come in, and they are whizzes at the data analysis, and they've helped us set goals and look at individual students, look at the teachers set goals for how many students are going to reach which benchmark, you know, throughout the year. And absolutely Bridget as our math facilitator, working with our math specialists, participating in PLCs, growing our teachers to be confident enough to present professional development. And in reading, Lisa Birdwell is our reading support person, and she has been our right-hand person as we've been focusing on reading and writing this year.
Do you know, I guess, maybe more, direct is, what strategies, what has changed from last year to December scores to then here we are in March? I mean, those are already done. So what's new? I mean, I know you're getting support. I know you have all that, but what is new? What has come across that, you know, what's going to turn BEST around? You know, I mean, if we get to a police officer, we deal with the personnel issue. That's a major issue every year. I know that for years. Every 3rd grade, 4th grade, you're losing 3/4 of your teachers, and then you're having to start all brand new with them. And so those are the type of strategies that we're talking about of, you know, incentives or this or that. I'm not holding anybody to anything, but, you know, what can we do as a board? We don't know the problem if it doesn't come to us and say, this is what we need, you know, as a leadership team.
I agree. I wish it was a simple answer like that, because I could be a rich woman. But it's different every year. Every year presents different challenges, and I'm very excited next year. I got to sit with Lisa today to look at the new language arts adoption and how that's going to be able to put reading and writing and everything all together where we don't have to create things, you know, it's all easy to follow, so we're excited about that. Through our visit at Kennedy, been working with a language arts specialist to incorporate a new structure for writing. We started in kindergarten, so now we've layered it into first grade and now it's into second grade. And so that's gonna be bringing us a lot stronger writers once they reach third and fourth grades. And, but I can't impress enough the importance for us to be able to keep our teachers because we have to start all over again, training them. I think the language arts adoption is going to be a great support for them because it's really easy to follow. And if we can just try to keep our students there so that as we grow them in kindergarten and first grade, they don't move. And then we have new students come in that, again, we have to start back at the beginning.
Right, I noticed you also have, I mean, obviously you're having, what, 54% new teachers or something of this last year?
Students.
Oh, sorry, students, I'm sorry, thank you. Oh, you had six of ACP teachers, and then you have new specialists, you have new interventionists. So not only have new teachers, you have new people training them that haven't been on the campus, and, you know, this is what we're going to, I mean, some sort of idea or a process what we're going with this.
And I have a question about that, because I heard that very clear, that thing kind of run through. So I feel you, I understand how hard it is to feel like you have to start over every year, and then you're coaching up and trying to train the new teachers. But I wanted to ask, that was something that was addressed in the 17-18 Equity Toolkit plan, when they went in and they did that, the Texas Equity Toolkit, and the plan that was submitted to TEA. One of the things was to address, because that's what happened, they went in and they said, okay, so what are some of the root causes? They found that you have teachers that are in these campuses, these high-need campuses that simply don't have the skills. Now, we're not saying don't hire them, maybe they're better suited for a different campus, but your campus needs people or teachers and staff that already has a lot of tools in their tool belt. And so the plans, a couple of the things in the plan was to offer an early job fair for high poverty campuses, meet with HR directors and campuses to plan the job fair, work with our public relations department to market and brand programs at these schools with your program, the action-based learning. Like, that would be a wonderful thing to share with, if you had a job fair specifically for these, to try to recruit these teachers. And, you know, I don't know if there's some type of incentive that could be offered for these teachers to stay over time, so you're not having that high turnover. So I'm looking at, I see that what you're doing at your level, and I've heard great things about the support that you're getting, but I'm asking about that other piece that you really don't have a lot of control over. So how is that being addressed?
Charles, or on the equity plan, you want to talk about that, or Elizabeth? Because those are things that we submitted.
So one of the things.
Why don't you come up, please?
So, as you stated, that was one of our goals for last year. And so one of the things that we did do is we sent out to our supervisors. It's hard for them to get away to go to job fairs because this is testing time. So for example, today, our job fairs are from today until the end of the year. So we sent out a Google Doc asking them to provide specific needs that they have on the campus. And we asked principals, any principals or assistant principals, to attend the job fairs with us so that we can look for those types of people at this time. We do offer job contracts from now for next year, and so we are working at that through that format.
Okay. In the plan it says offer an early job fair to our high poverty campuses. So to me that reads as that you all are hosting a job fair. You're offering an early job fair.
So that was last year when we put that on the plan. One of the things that was communicated back to us that it was probably not a great idea to do it that way. And so instead we've chosen to do it this way because this is their testing time, their busy time. And so they felt like the better need would be for us to seek. the teachers.
So if that plan was eliminated or just decided not to happen because it wasn't a good idea, what replaced it? Was there another idea? Was there another plan? Was there another way to do something with that?
So our this year, ESSA was a different goal.
Last year,
Right.
from
But
then to there.
so ESSA, we had different goals, so we did different things for ESSA this year. But for our recruiting initiatives, we did many different things. Like we said, we created the Google Doc, where they get to tell us what they need, and then we go out and look for those things. I'm trying to think of some of the strategies that we use. We take our specialists with us to our job fairs, like sometimes Patty will go for bilinguals. We try to find very certain specialists in the areas that can help us interview. So we've done those types of things.
And I wanted to add one thing. I have already met with Ms. Frenchwood, and we sat down and looked at our entire staff, and I shared with her my everybody makes fun of my color sticky notes, but I've already shared that with her, and kind of the thought process of who we would move where, and so she's had, I think, 3 pages of notes with specifics about the positions that we potentially would have, so as they go to job fairs, she will be specifically looking for people to help us.
So,
Stacy Frenchwood, she's a director in the HR department.
so one of the other pieces of that was train high-poverty campuses on effective hiring practices. So tell me about the training that you received on effective hiring practices.
I participated in the professional developments that the Human Resources Department provides, and our whole admin team, we take turns going so that we are all on the same page, and we've gone through processes at our campus because we know that, for instance, when you look at a will or a skill, we look for the will first. We look for the heart of the potential candidate because we can teach them the skill. If they've got their heart in the right place, we can teach the content. And of course, we always want to look for teachers that are experienced, but just because they come experienced doesn't always mean that it's going to be a good fit for what we need for the programs at our campus.
And in regards to the ACP, you mentioned that what do we do differently for them? We have met with our PD department, Stacy Frenchwood, myself, and the PD department, and looking at a different pathway for those new teachers because they do require different kinds of training. So we have met already twice this year in regards to how we're going to do things differently for those ACP candidates.
Okay, and so tell me about because the other part of the plan says campus hiring patterns will reflect a significantly higher percentage of experienced teachers.
So one of the things that we've done differently this year is also gathering data. And so what I do is every 2 or 3 weeks I pull up who's resigning and what number of years they have. I send it to the PD so that we can say, okay, we've lost these teachers and they were in this amount of years, and these are the new teachers, and this is how many years of experience they have. So I send that to PD on a regular basis, so they're keeping track of which new teachers we're bringing in and what kind of PD that they need. And so in fact, today was the day that I sent it out to PD. And so like if they're a brand new teacher, then they look at that and say, okay, we need to support them in this way.
Only one of them, Mr. Marino, back to the original, was something significant that could address the staffing issue. And we haven't had a chance to talk about this because we don't know where we are in terms of school finance, but it's going to have to be some type of financial compensation, some type of differentiated teacher pay. We've talked in circles around, but we haven't gone to a specific request. We are working on that right now on looking at what that could look like, not only for BEST, but for other schools based on needs. But, you know, short of doing something significant like that, you know, the pattern of turnover and the pattern of retaining teachers on campuses that are tough to work in, it's going to be difficult. It's going to be difficult. So, as I have talked to you guys several times over the last year or so, as we start looking at how we move forward when we do have funds to address compensation, that's going to be part of what we're going to bring to you as an option, as an idea. In some cases, specifically to a campus. In some cases, specifically to certain content areas. Of course, you know, it just depends on what the need is. But that, you know, that's a significant change of thinking, the way you go about doing that.
I
as an organization.
I understand, and I know we've had, we've been discussing this for months, and as, you know, kind of, like you said, going around in circles on it. Do we have any idea, I mean, like, time-wise, of when this is gonna bring forward to us, so we can go through it? Because, you know, I mean, we have a test next month, and, you know, I don't want 6 months from now going, oh, we talked about that
Right.
12 months ago, and, you know, we haven't really, we're still kind of getting ideas and stuff to us, you know.
As far as the pay, like, is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, there's some strategies, some ideas, and just go back to us and say, this is what we, you know.
So we
And
just.
I know, I mean, I think Deanna's here, Deanna knows, she knows how much money's there, and she's able to tell you, you know, we take from here to there, and we have, you know, I give you 10 pennies, you know, I give you 10 cents, that's all you got, you know, she knows it down to that, I'm sure she does, you know.
We would have had this conversation last spring, had we had the funding. Now, as we're moving forward now, and it's hard to talk about it right now, other than what we're hearing, but until they actually pass the budget and we get the amount of money, we're working on a strategy and a vehicle to do it. We just don't know what the funding mechanism would be. That's not going to happen until late May, early June, when the session's over. But in terms of the funding, I'll let Elizabeth talk about the vehicles. We're working on that right now.
So what we've currently done, we've already had one meeting with the committee, but some of the research that we've done is we've researched all the Texas schools, the districts that are, that they have somewhat of a differentiated pay plan. And we're taking those ideas, and in fact, we're meeting with area soups this week, and we're looking at all the things that we think that would fit our district and what reflects our goals and our values, and putting those things on a list, and then we're going to bring a recommendation to Mr. Chambers. But we have already met once, pulled all the research, and then we're going to be meeting this week, and we'll just do follow-up meetings until we get a good recommendation that we can bring to the board.
Well, I know I've been on the board for over 10 years, and it seems like it's a way of Alief doing it. You know, let's see what Fort Bend, let's see what Katie's doing, let's look at ideas and doing this and so forth. And have a discussion. You know, there's neighboring districts that have very similar type students, have similar type problems, have similar type mobility issues, similar type staffing issues where staff doing this, but their scores, they're not in Fs. You know, in addition to we're surprised that we're much lower than some of those on those campuses, with our almost equal type of students and the quality of principal. You know, I mean, you know, I've done that, and so I just try to kind of wrap around, try and figure out what do we do this, and Ms. Williams has shared a couple of videos with me of other districts in the state and the nation that are doing this, and it seems like the videos that or the way that they were approaching it, again, you know, that's not ours. I don't want to get into the weeds of it, of saying at your campus you got to do this. That's not my job at all. My job is oversee as a board, and then, you know, work with one individual, one employee, and then hopefully that gets disseminated. But they're looking at it's almost like they have to look at that campus and have those discussions. You know, I don't know if discussions are met with those 19 teachers that want to leave and say, what's it going to take to keep you? What is the problem? What's it going to take? You know, is it, you know, I don't know. So, I mean, you know, $500 more a month? Is it this? Is it give me a parking space with my name on it? You know, whatever to do those, and what's going to fit for best.
Sure.
You know, and then we had the same conversation with Sneed. We had the same conversation with, you know, the same thing. What's going to specific to that campus? Bring that to the thing, because I got a whole description of what the areas do, the directors do, and the deputy does, and we know what the superintendent does. You know, to bring that forward, to get that leadership together to say, at best, this is what we need to do. Let's have that meeting with Deanna. Okay, we need to bring up some money. What are we going to do? What do we need to not necessarily cut, but what are the potential we need to eliminate? Where are some shortfalls that we need to work on? You know, and try to get that taken care of.
So, kind of what you mentioned, we do at the very beginning of the year, the 6 IR campuses, our directors go out and meet with the principals, and we do a skills wills list, and where are the areas that go for each teacher. And then based on their needs, then what we do is we try to either provide support to them, and some of the things that we do may be, like, for example, when they have an instructional specialist out, Renee may call me and I'll say, okay, well, let's get you a sub to get into this classroom where you can pull people. So we do those kinds of things all year long, and we do it based on the needs of that specific campus. So secondly, at this time of the year, when we realize, okay, teachers are making the decisions where they're going to be next year, our directors go out there and they talk to to the principals, they sit down through the list, and then I bring that information back over. I met with Ava and said, okay, Ava, these are the reasons why these people are leaving. Can we do some things about this? So we've had that meeting already in regards to that campus. And some of the reasons that they're leaving, I think we can have a little bit of help to assist them to want to stay. So now that we know why they are leaving, we've talked about ways to get them to stay. So we are having those conversations. I'm sorry? Just basically what Renee said, they're overtired, they feel like they are overworked, they're self-contained, so we've talked about, is that an option that we can make them where they don't get self-contained for next year? Some of them, because they are great at what they do, they get higher positions in other districts because they worked with the very most difficult group of kids and they were successful. So some of them are moving into other positions. We even have, like this year, her specialists, they're all from within. They were teachers from within, but they moved up to those leadership positions. And so we kind of converse about that all year, so how can we assist you in that way? So I do have a list of all those people that are leaving and why they're leaving. And we're meeting with the deputy superintendent and the area superintendent to see what we can do to assist before the end of the year.
So when this happened last year, and you had a big turnover of staff last year and the year before, how many years have you been principal of this?
5 years.
5 years, okay. So it's a pattern. It's a history of the 3rd and 4th grade looking at that. So did we do that last year? Did we meet with them last year? And how many did we retain at the campus? And how many retained in the district? Do we have that data?
To be honest, we've gotten better over the years. So at first I just gave them the data. Then the next part is now we give them the data and meet with them. And now we're getting the data and receiving feedback. So it's taken us a series of learning, but I think we're at a place, I think, that we're able to help meet their needs. And she's given us very specific ideas on how to help keep those people to retain the teachers.
Thank you, Ms. Moreno. I'd like to allow Ms. Butler for a moment to speak.
So my question is about the targeted improvement plan that Best Elementary has. So it says in here that according to the goal was not met related to the students improving their writing scores from their CCA to their DCAs, from DCA 1 to DCA 2. So what are you going to do to prepare them for the next level? Because obviously, right, if our students aren't doing well in the DCAs, which I've been told is formed from STAR questions, right? And then some of those come from other assessments, right? So when we get those STAR scores, they're going to be very representative of what this looks like. So I hear you say that you're going to do tutorials that are happening. So when did those tutorials start? Do you have an after-school program separate from tutorials in which we're addressing those needs for literacy and math? I've heard also about iReady and kids pulling data and calculating data, but I don't actually see that when I look at your targeted improvement plan on how those pieces are being met or how those pieces actually, what things you're going to do to get from here to there. Because my concern is also that if our kids aren't reading and then we are placing them in the next grade for 4th grade, they're not going to be ready in 4th grade as well. So what are we going to do specifically right now to prepare them for May, because it's April, right? I know it's Star Blitz is going on and kids are coming home with more homework and all these things are happening, but what are we doing specifically to address those reading scores? Because obviously, because the board has talked about K through 3rd, literacy and our commitments and our beliefs, and so I'm questioning what that actually looks like specifically.
Sure. So I'll start with writing. For us this year, we started by sending all of our 4th grade teachers to Empowering Writers training. And when they returned from the training, they had time to sit with Lisa Birdwell and then map out adjusting the structure of the writing time from how we had previously had it. We used to focus most of our time on the composition piece. So the students are going through the writing process, editing, making their piece better, getting a new prompt, going through that process again. And we switched that to where we're still focusing on the composition, but we're paying a lot more attention to the revising and editing piece. And as we shifted that focus, our teachers were just completely honest in saying, I need more support and assistance so I really understand how to teach students to revise their paper, how to teach them how to edit. And we've had built-in planning sessions this year where they've taken days to sit with their team and really look at the materials that they're using for writing instruction so that they have a good understanding of what they're going to do when they go back to the classroom. For tutorials, we started tutorials for 3rd and 4th grade in January, right when we got back from the break. But as I said, not a lot of the 3rd and 4th grade teachers signed up. So our ILT team had kind of took that over, and it's been going very well. We have consistent materials that we're using throughout tutorials, so everybody's on the same page with what they're working on. But there's a little bit of time that it takes now for the specialists to get to know those kids, because I haven't been working with them for half a year, you know, so some of the time is spent looking at what the strengths and the weaknesses are of the students, and that's where our school improvement specialists have been amazing to really help us look at specific pieces of the data. So instead of like just knowing we need to focus on revising, we know we need to focus on this one particular piece of that. In the area of reading, we were very excited to begin using the RISE Reading Intervention Program, and we use Next Steps to Guided Reading for our small group reading instruction, that regardless of what grade you teach, if you have studied and read the book, you will understand how to meet any student where they are as a reader. And each level gives you specific skills that they need to develop before they can be strong enough to move to the next level. So this piece of this instructional tool has been a vital part of our growth for our teachers to feel comfortable teaching in small groups where it's targeted to exactly what the students need. It's not we're all doing the same book, we're all doing the same, it's very targeted to what they need. And so the RISE program, again, Lisa Birdwell brought that to us, and you know, we read about it and just loved it. And it brings some of the key components that are parts of Next Steps to Guided Reading. So there's a piece where the students are reading a new book or a new passage. There's a word study component. There's a guided writing component. And then there's another reading component where they're rereading what they read the day before. And this was tricky to put into place because this did not replace their normal 90-minute reading instruction. This was in addition to that 90 minutes. And so we had to be creative with our scheduling and adjust some schedules so that our social studies and our in-class intervention time lined up so that could give those kids the opportunity to be pulled out for that intervention. And then the teachers who taught the RISE intervention program embedded social studies teaks. So they were reading passages about soldiers and freedom and so forth that are based on 4th grade social studies teaks. This took 4 master reading teachers to facilitate. And it's 1 hour long, so you only have 16 students participating, and each station you have 4 kids, and every 15 minutes the bell rings and the kids rotate to the next station. And we saw immediate growth with our students as readers. You know, their reading levels were moving up in iStation as they were taking the assessments. And the disconnect that we found was we were so excited when it came time for DCA testing. We're like, okay, come on, RISE kids, let's see how you do. You've grown so much. And they didn't show as much growth and gains on the test as, you know, on the actual test. So we knew we needed to go back and, okay, so what do we need to adjust so that they're making more connections to the test? And we don't want to just test practice, but we did embed some questions. This is what it's going to look like when you take the STAR test. This is how it's going to be asked. So they're being exposed to those things a little earlier because we really wanted to stay true in reading instruction, growing readers. Now, yes, we are shifting to teaching them test-taking strategies and, you know, helping them to be able to work their way through the STAR test. But, you know, we just really wanted to make sure that they were growing in the area of reading. And then in math, of course, we're using iReady, Math in Focus. We've been true to Math in Focus from the get-go. And, you know, Bridget has brought teachers and administrators from other districts to come and see what the math instruction looks like with Math in Focus at best. And the teachers feel really good and solid about what they're doing. Yes, there are still teachers that are struggling with just general instruction, but the program itself is very strong. And the students go to specials classes, PE, music, and art, and we have two different computer labs so that one of their rotations is spent 30 minutes on iReady, doing math instruction, and then 30 minutes on iStation, where they're getting that extra instruction. And we have maintained, I don't know for how long, but we've had the highest usage in the district. So we've had a lot of students that have already exceeded their goals for, you know, how iReady places them and sets the goals for them that have already exceeded their goals.
And then my next question is related to your budget. So I heard that you said that you had some campus needs, right? So when you're ready to do your budget, will we see those needs being listed in your campus budget, right? So I know it's like budget development time. You're considering we need to hire, you know, more interventionists or whatever it is that you need. Is that being developed while you're working on your campus budget currently now? Looking for next year?
Absolutely. And as an IR campus, you know, we have our priority grant. So I want to say maybe my first year when we did our teacher training lab, I wrote a proposal and said I really want to implement this program because we wanted to grow our teachers. We spend so much of our time focusing on the teachers that need to improve or the teachers that are brand new that we don't always have the time or the manpower to go in and look at this superstar teacher. These are some little tweaks that you can make to be like amazing because we're so engrossed with the teachers that are struggling. But that was the one time that I actually went and made a proposal to Ms. Tomas, and it was approved, and we put that teacher training lab in place, and it was great to grow and help build our teachers' skills. But other than that, for the most part, with our priority grant, we are able to purchase all the materials that we need, that we use for tutorials, that we use. We embedded in our master schedule a 30-minute chunk of time where teachers have that time to do intervention in their class as they need to intervene for students that are in stat or, you know, they're in danger of failing. The teachers always have given us the feedback like, we don't have time, when are we supposed to do this? And we don't want to pull them out of any other classes or anything, and so we put in a little chunk of time in there so that that's embedded in their schedule so they can work with those students.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Canales. I really appreciate it. You've been standing for about an hour now. I just want to wrap this up by stating what I heard, because I know that the board was asking what changed. I can't say what changed, but let me say what I heard. I looked at the taper report, and I do agree and understand that you had writing was a deficiency. You said that only 30% of your students are at the approaches level. Am I correct? So that would mean the rest of the students are below level, and that's why the focus was on writing. What I heard you say was the focus was on reading and writing. I heard you say that you were seeking teachers that was outside the box. You said that you wanted to keep the students engaged because you are in a unique location, which means that that's why the action-based learning is supporting that for those students. I also heard you talk about restructuring the learning document and aligning the curriculum. So I pretty much understand those changes, and the expectation is that something would change. At the end of the day, I know the efforts that you're putting in, but what we're forgetting is children are the people who are at stake at this. So no matter how much we pour in, at the end of the day, the test is going to show up with the kids. You know, so I applaud you for being very passionate and standing as long as you did to share everything about your campus. So thank you so much for bringing that information.
Thank you.
Is there anything Ms. Key wanted to see the opportunity?
She was going to signal.
I did just have thank you, Ms. It's really Canales, so.
I know,
that's all
it's
I'm reading.
Canales, reading
That's just that's an old.
Because I forward. But also she had mentioned that her,
Staff was doing, I believe she was doing intervention tutorials. She has intervention on it.
right, and she talked about you all really thinking out of the box. And so I think that we owe it to you also here to think out of the box, how we can support your campus and your needs. My question, I guess, to HD is that I was just looking at the general fund and for instructional, and maybe you can kind of help me understand this. The general funds, looking at that budget, instructional resources, and I was just comparing Best to another campus that about the same size, but their budget in that area is about half to a third less. So can someone kind of, I'm just needing to understand why that would happen.
Instructional resources, what document are you looking at?
Oh, I'm looking at our official 18-19 budget.
So is that a particular function?
Well, I was just looking at non-payroll costs by functional area, 12 instructional resources.
Function 12 is the library.
So I was just wondering, this campus, I would just choose not to say its name, but it's receiving like a little over 25,000, whereas Best is like 9,000.
Campuses receive a per pupil account allocation based on their number of students and make decisions where to allocate that. So function 12 is library. So in this particular case, less resources are being allocated to purchase new books and for the library than other areas within that campus budget.
So can I ask a question? So that's based on equal and not equity, right? That's based on saying that would give the same amount to every, based on enrollment per child versus equity, what each campus needs specifically. Is that
Yes,
correct?
that is how we have allocated our budget, is based on enrollment. There's additional resources provided, such as priority grants, title funding, federal sources, but our general fund budget in the past has always been allocated on a per pupil basis.
Could you please come to the microphone again, and come to the microphone and share that so Jennifer can hear it?
Oh, I was just explaining that all our campuses receive their funding from the general fund on a per pupil basis. And in elementary schools, that's $112 per student for each projected enrollment.
But there are also additional resources that go to some campuses based on a variety of other funding
Correct.
sources, but for the general fund. In
Such
particular,
as our federal funds.
Yeah, I guess the question on this was, I was just looking at it, one is about less than 100 students, difference between the two campuses that she was comparing. Best with another campus that was maybe 90 students more, right? But it's still a $16,000.
In that one category.
That's
That one
Is
campus,
that correct?
but that's not equal then, because it would be based on the number of students.
No, the total number of dollars allocated to the school to then allocate within the school of how they spend it, library, for tutorial money, whatever, that same amount per child is given to each elementary, and then the elementary principal and their SDC all make up the budget of where they want to spend those dollars. So Best allocated less towards the library than the other school you're comparing.
So the campus gets equal lump sum, equal wise, and then they, based on their meeting with them in the area and SDC and all the, and superintendent and HR and payroll, I mean, everything.
And all the
That's
other
their non.
funding sources that they receive, like federal funds, grants, and so forth. There's other decisions that may apply to that campus that only they can make that decision on that campus of where their needs are based on their campus improvement plan, and then if they have a turnaround plan or a TASE plan.
Which campus are you comparing to? And I'm happy to research that further and answer specific questions on allocations for those campuses.
Yeah,
I'm just getting right out of the.
Just send it.
Yeah, there's a lot of numbers in those books, and I'm happy to dig down and analyze further any information in there.
So I heard someone made a statement about all the campus get equal. The campus get funded by this enrollment first, and then all the other needs on top. But what you're saying, once the money is there, the campus, because of the autonomy, they have the opportunity and the needs to determine where they're going to spend the funding.
Right, so the principal coordinates what they're spending out of the general fund, which is based on per pupil allocations, with all of their other funding sources, and and put that all together in their budget picture to meet their needs.
So this is just from the general fund?
That is exclusively general fund.
And if she has additional funding from other sources that she's using for something else in regards to instructional resources, that would not show up here because this is simply the general fund.
Correct.
That's correct.
Thank you so much,
Thank you, Renee.
Dr. Page.
One thing, before we leave, just don't forget about the 54% mobility of kids. 700 kids, 400 of them that weren't there last year.
I think they're fourth graders, I think it's brand new fall costs.
Are they in-district transfers or out of district?
I could get that for you, I don't know offhand.
That would be interesting to know that if we have a large percentage of in-district mobility, and they're not where they need to be.
Right, and that's what the RISE research group is working on right now as we speak, is trying to find those pockets of mobility. Are they coming from another district, are they coming internally? Thank you.
And my only purpose is to introduce Dr. Courtney Marshall from Collins.
Hi, good evening, Board and Mr. Chambers. Thank you all for your time this evening. I'm going to begin my presentation by first talking about the focuses that we had for this particular school year. As most know, Collins Elementary has an extremely high ELL population, and so due to that population, we focused our attention and energy towards literacy and differentiation. And so when we're talking about literacy, we're looking at literacy across all content areas, and we're focusing on the following domains: language development, which is where our sheltered instruction protocols come into play. Also integrating read aloud every single day in our reading classrooms, but also into our other major content areas to ensure that we're introducing and making the TEKS more accessible to our students, as well as integrating writing, checking how we are checking for understanding with our students by our questioning and comprehension, as well as vocabulary development. And on the differentiation side, our focus was solely on small group instruction, looking first at the environment and what we're putting in place to ensure that we actually have solid small groups in place for the areas, as well as how we group kids, as well as looking at lesson design and delivery. And we are very proud. We have some good results, a lot of growth that we've seen from last year to this year as a result of some of these practices we put into place. One of the areas that we still continue to struggle in is writing. And again, that is due to our very, very high ELL population. We know that when students come in having a language deficiency or not fully developing the English language, they struggle with reading, and if you struggle with reading, you're going to struggle with writing. And so that is an area that we continue to work on and to refine. Something else also to notice about our campus that we do fairly well when it comes to math, and the great thing about math is that numbers are universal, and so it does show that our students are very capable. They just need help with accessing the information in order to make that growth. An area that we still work on in math, of course, is looking at problem solving, because they are written, of course, words, and so they have to disaggregate what that information is sharing. And so again, that's where that literacy across contents come in. We're teaching our math teachers how to treat those word problems as if they are a story, to get students to first comprehend what's being asked before they can start solving. Looking at some additional data that we have, as you'll notice here, in addition to having a high ELL population, we're also 90% economically disadvantaged. And as we mentioned, 87% ELL, and of course we have a high mobility rate on our campus, so some of those numbers fluctuate. So as of now, we are sitting at 85% ELL, and what that looks like is our population is 916 students, and out of that 916, 777 students are ELL. And so with that, that's when we get that 85%. So that only leaves 139 students sitting on our campus that are non-LEP out of that 900. So that just paints a picture of why focusing on literacy and how we're differentiating those needs for those students is a big priority for us as a campus. As you'll see, one of the challenges that we talked about again is the language needs of our students in grades 3 through 5. What we noticed is that a lot of our students are entering into 3rd grade, entering into 4th grade, entering into 5th grade, not having a solid English foundation. And the way things work in the world of testing is when you have when you have so many years in school, you have to test in English. And so if our students, even if they are still a beginner student, which we have several sitting in our 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade classrooms, if you're a beginner student, you still have to test in English because of your years in school. And so right now, what we're focusing on in the future is what we can do in our primary grades to really help our students leave those primary grades with a solid foundation entering into 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. Because unfortunately, if they come in not being able to read when they enter into 3rd grade or not being able to access that information, the way the pacing guide and the TEKS are set up, teachers do not have those opportunities to teach 3rd graders how to read or how to access that information. So we're working on that, and of course it's very challenging because there are so many of them at one time, and so that's a consideration that we're going to talk about at the end, is how we can make it so it's more equitable for all of those students because there is such a large number that are in place for our campus. Our theme this year as a campus is Collins Tribe. And with our Collins Tribe, what we're really focusing on is just, with our students, is making sure that we are more than a grade at Collins Elementary, and we want our students to feel connected to what we are doing and be connected to the school and to their teachers. And so it mentioned that we have 12, we actually have 14 clubs and organizations on our campus that are all sponsored by staff members. We also have Catholic Charities that comes to us every single day, and Catholic Charities specifically targets our refugee children. So they come every single day and they provide them with the social and emotional development, some language development as well that they need. Most of those families that are coming having experienced trauma, and so they are there to fill that gap in for those kiddos. We also have very strong business partner mentors that come in and that support us every single week by mentoring students. They also help us by participating in all of our school-wide events, and they also support us financially. We also have backpack buddies. Again, as I mentioned, we're 90% eco-dis, and with that, we're also zoned to 100% apartments. So that also brings in another set of needs. But with backpack buddies, that's by the Houston Food Bank, and so every week we're able to send our CIS specialist is able to send families home with items and food that they can take home for the weekend. One thing that we also do and make a priority also on our campus is to make sure that we build experiences for all of our students. So all of our students pre-K to 5th grade go to 1 to 2 field trips a year that we fully fund, so that parents do not have to pay, with the exception of our 4th grade field trip. And again, we do that. Every single field trip is tied to a TEK, so it's meant to enhance or extend learning that's happening. So children are not left behind because of behavior. Everybody goes on the field trip, and so we pride ourselves on making sure that we provide those experiences for our kids. Another organization that we have is our Meets and Masters Motivation Group, and this is for our 3rd through 5th grade students who've already demonstrated the ability to perform at Meets and Masters on campus. And this is actually run by myself and my leadership team. Last year we had about 68 kids that we had in this group that we projected, and this year we have a little over 100, so we're happy about that. And so with those kiddos, we meet every single Monday since January, when we got back with our first DCA1 results. And myself and my leadership team, again, meet every single Monday. We do motivational and problem-solving activities with the kids. And in addition to that, myself, as well as all members of my leadership team, are assigned 6 to 7 students that they check in with and meet with once a week, just to keep them motivated and keep them on the path of success that they're on. This year, and this semester actually, we started the COMET program. We received the grant for COMET. And so right now we have roughly about 24 kids that are in the COMET program, and they stay after school, and it's again another free service for our families. We actually, again, because we were starting something new and wanted to start small, those same kids that are in the Meets and Masters are also participating in the COMET program. And so we're doing that to also give them an extra layer of support to help them continue to grow. But some of the challenges that we have as we also go to support our students is the low parental involvement for academic events. We have lots of families that come out for our Meet the Teacher, for open house, and for fall festival, and for multicultural festival. But when it comes to the academic events that we put on, we have a pretty low turnout. It's not as high as we would like it to be, just like our other recreational events. And a lot of that is due to some of those language barriers that our parents experience. Just to kind of throw out some of the languages that we have on our campus, we have Vietnamese, we have Thai, we have Burmese, we have Swahili, we have Cantonese, Mandarin, Somali, Malay, French, and Dari. And those actually are languages that are sitting all in our monolingual classrooms. So those are not your everyday languages. We don't have a lot of people that can translate on their behalf, but those are the students that we have sitting in our monolingual classrooms. And then going on to our staff, I'm very proud to say I have a very, very, very hardworking and dedicated group of individuals that I work with. And so we pride ourselves on making sure that we recognize them regularly. We keep them motivated and also recognize them for their efforts. This year we've been doing a book study on Kids Deserve It. And again, just getting the teachers to remember their purpose, remember their why, and just to keep them motivated throughout the course of the year. We also recognize staff for their attendance. Attendance is a big deal. We recognize that if you're not here, the kids aren't learning. And so that continues to be a big focus. So every single month, we recognize our teachers who have been there for the entire month. We also have what's called a Nailed It Award. And with this award, we go through the classrooms, and when we recognize and see a teacher doing something new or something novel, we take a picture of it, we use it at a staff meeting, we post it up, we have the teacher come up and speak to everyone about it, and then as a result, they get a certificate and a hammer that we paint gold because it's nailed it. And that's something that they're able to walk away with, but it's also another way for them to share what they're doing because they're not able to be in each other's classrooms, but they are able to share out so that they give other teachers ideas of what's happening in their rooms. We also have weekly shout-outs in the newsletter that I do every single week, again, acknowledging teachers and staff for their efforts, and also monthly staff treats that we do every single month. Again, just another area to show them because we recognize that the language needs of our students impact a lot of student achievement, and so it requires the teachers to have to work sometimes double and triple the amount of time that some other campuses may have, and so we want to keep them encouraged and keep them motivated because the language needs are so high and it's very difficult for them to differentiate for so many different reasons. So in looking at that, some considerations is really looking at keeping the class sizes small. And I want to stay there for just a moment because as I mentioned before, I'll give you an example of one of my third grade classrooms. Out of her 20 kids, she's got 13 kids that are left. And out of those 13 kids, she's got 7 different languages that are spoken amongst those 13 kids. Now, with those remaining 7 kids, 3 of those are special ed, with 4 being general ed. And so with that, this teacher is not only having to differentiate for ability, but she's also having to differentiate for a language that she clearly does not speak. And she's also having to differentiate, of course, for the behaviors that come here and there. So with keeping the classroom sizes small, it gives teachers an opportunity to have to differentiate a little less so they can be more intentional and help students grow more. Because our language needs are just that great that would be a great support for us, as well as the ability to block, as my counterpart also mentioned, having the even numbers, because again, if a teacher is self-contained, not only are they having to differentiate in one block, which is math, for example, but they're also having to do those same differentiations in writing and also in reading. And so it causes a heavy burden on that teacher because of course they're performing differently in different subject areas. So having that ability to block and keeping numbers even takes some of the pressure and share some of that responsibility. Additionally, our district does a great job on providing professional development to help support our students when it comes to language development. However, what I would like to see happen for my campus in particular is when we have those school-wide or district-wide trainings those same trainers being able to come back and actually come to Collins and support us, inspect what we're doing, attend our PLC sessions, and give us some more one-on-one strategies that we can use. Because the summer PDs are great and they're wonderful, but once the kids get here, the story changes a little bit, so being able to have those follow-ups will be very helpful for my staff. And also looking at an additional assistant principal. As I mentioned before, we have a little over 900 students, and there's just 3 of us. And so each one of us supervises roughly about 35 people each. And so when we're looking at trying to support teachers and trying to grow teachers and being able to inspect what we expect, especially meeting the needs of that high ego dis and that language development, having an extra set of hands to also be a part of that team and to be the boots on the ground would be extremely helpful in helping us to reach more people and to be able to grow more teachers. And as well as having an additional computer lab for interventions. We recognize that there are some changes that we're going to have to put in place to help reach our ELL students. And so with an additional lab we can rotate students through at one time would be extremely helpful. We only have one. And we have 2 actually, but one of them is used for the block rotation. And then we have another lab that we just use that we try to rotate students through. But as I mentioned before, with having such a high LEP population, when TELPAS comes around, everything shuts down because all 2nd through 5th grade LEP students have to be tested. And we also have our testing that we have to do for ISD and for iReady throughout the course of the year, so that one lab gets used frequently throughout the year, so we don't have an extra lab where we can rotate our students through to get those computerized interventions. Thank you.
I'm going to ask if Ms. Key has anything to say. I'm going to allow her to go first. Do you have anything to share, Ms. Key?
I'm actually okay. I'm listening and writing down questions that I'll present in writing to hear from at the next meeting.
Thank you, Ms. Key. Any other board member?
Yes, so I have a question. Well, actually, I have a statement. One, I noticed that your data for DCA 1 to DCA 2 has improved. And so I wanted to know, is there anything specifically that you can say that you've done on your campus that has made that change, so that maybe that's something we can look at replicating on another campus?
Well, like I mentioned before, it's that increased focus on literacy and differentiation. And so that has taken on, that's been a big animal for us to conquer this year. And so a lot of that comes from providing targeted professional development that speaks to each one of those components. I'm also very fortunate to have a lot of interventionists on my team, and so what we've done this year is we've designated our different days to provide that intervention in classrooms. So on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we go into our 3rd and through 5th grade classrooms and we provide support to our almost approaches and approaches students. And on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I have it structured to where we provide intervention to our meets and masters kiddos. So we make sure that every student that's on every level is receiving that extra support that they need to grow.
Ms. Courtney, could you please explain to the rest of the board who may not understand block scheduling, please?
Okay, sure. So with block scheduling, that means that you have multiple content areas that you teach. And so, for example, in 4th grade, if you're blocked, you'll have one teacher that will teach the ELR portion, which is English Language Arts, so that's the reading and the writing, and another individual that will teach the math and the science.
Okay, so there are benefits to having block scheduling, especially when it comes down to professional developments for those teachers, correct?
Absolutely, and not only that, but having been a teacher, having taught 2 of the board members' teachers up here, I know my strength was language arts. Their children probably wouldn't have done very well if I taught math because that's not my strength. And so we want to make sure that we're also tapping into the strengths of the teachers. And so some teachers are in positions where they're having to teach content areas where they may not be as comfortable, and so they need more support, but being able to provide that option allows people to work in their strengths.
Any other questions? Mr. Moreno?
Yes, I'm PhD or I guess, or staff, whatever. I know you have done a very great presentation, very strong, and it's kind of interesting to see that y'all are not very far, just a couple of miles away from each other on the same side of the beltway, and it's just a whole different situation. It's just crazy with the turnover, and it's just that the area, living here so long, I understand that. But it's just you identified, 4 goals, 4 situations that we need to put around the staffing and the technology. My question to you, if this is the first time this come up, I'm sure you've had discussion of these are some issues. What is the process? If you maybe explain, let's say come to that, they take it, you know, I'm sure it's not just you wake up in the middle of the night and go, oh, this is what I want to get done. I'm sure there's some process behind it with the areas and your leadership team, and then it goes all the way to AVA and then the HPD and put some plans together. And this is exactly what I'm looking for, because this is a different animal here than what Best is doing. And so, you know, I would say this is a quick fix, but your scores are showing because you've identified the situation. The language is an issue. And if you can help fix the language and get parental involvement and things like that, then, you know, it looks like scores are going to continue to go up. You know, by identifying that problem. I'm sure there's other issues, but you understand the main issue with that. I just understand what the process is of they're going through this and, you know, getting an action plan for them to, you know, get these things done for them. Because this isn't big money, you know.
Well, it's coming through us, and ultimately it'll come to council.
Exactly. Part of the process every year is we do send out, like when it's personnel request time, and so that's the time of year that we're in right now. And so campuses have sent in their personnel requests, and so we're reviewing those requests to determine, you know, what's possible. So absolutely, we're having conversations about what is it, especially at our priority campuses, that they need. And so in Ms. Canales' presentation, she also had some consideration. She's told us what it is that she needs. So we absolutely give heavy emphasis to those priority campuses. Not only but also our campuses that might be on board.
Is this new discussion, or are these new considerations, or how long have you been principal at Collins?
This is my 5th year at Collins, but we missed meeting standard by 4/10 of a point. So this is my first time having to present my considerations to the board. So
how long have you identified these considerations? I guess I should have said. When did this first come up? When you're seeing this? I mean, you've been 5 years, so you know, year 1, year 2, year 4.5, or something. I don't know.
Well, really just this year. For the most part, we've actually been pretty stable and pretty solid in how we're handling our language, you know, situation with our kiddos. But as time progresses and as the rigor continues to increase, we recognize that we're going to have to start doing things a little bit differently so that we don't continue to find ourselves in the same situation, and that so we can actually see whatever the actual standard or goal is. So right now, it's as a result of what's taking place now and the direction that the rigor is going in.
And I understand we're always, as a board, in the same situation. We have, you know, every 2 years there's some turnover. There's, you know, there's issues come up, and we try to stay focused as well on some things, and then all of a sudden, 2 months later, oh, now there's a whole budget fall, and there's an issue with this or that, and we get distracted in a way and try to put a fire out over here, and then 6 months later, we're like, well, what about this thing we talked about 6 months ago? You know, that's just business. That just happens. You know, and so that's why I've recommended for us to hear from you. So our question is just maybe on the monitoring, the follow through, and so forth. So a year from now, if you present again to us or to the board, that it's not. You know, we talked about a year ago. These were considerations to the board, and what's happened from there. And so that's what I like. You know, maybe Nancy, you're the area super. So kind of like following up of what's the plans for this? Because I mean, some of the block size, you know, the size is small, the block, and then you know, the staffing. You know, I don't know if I've heard that as an issue for the campus.
Well, since the beginning of the year, we meet, Courtney and I meet, we talk about where staffing is, where her teachers are, how she can configure them to best meet the needs of her kids with what we have in terms of the number of teachers and staff members she has and the class sizes. We certainly talk about any types of resource needs or instructional support she needs. I know that this year she had a assistant principal out on maternity leave, and we had Dr. Burrows in there subbing, and so, you know, as Courtney needs, as Dr. Marshall has needs come up, whether it's in the classroom or if it's something that they need in a leadership team sense,
we are in constant communication with each other, whether I can be there to sit in on a meeting, whether I can be the liaison between the campus and the central office. We certainly collaborate. Many times we have our monthly oversight meetings, and so many times we're all in the room together, and it is Dr. Marshall, myself, and the entire central support staff, and that is a really valuable time for us to sit and really look at the data, look at the people, and just talk about adjustments, constant adjustments that are needed at the campus. Because as you can see, every story is so different. It has to be customized by each campus.
And is this something these 4 items can be rectified or corrected or added or something? I mean, I know there's some money involved, especially with the computer lab and, and so forth.
So, short answer is yes. Longer answer is, we talked about some of these, because these have already come to us in terms of staffing and the block scheduling and all that. We talked about that in morning council. So yes, the answer to your question is yes. There's a lot of things that we can do, and this, in some cases, doesn't cost a lot of money. It's just a matter of changing our either our behavior or changing more of the process.
So I know part of the process is the monitoring, and we're just as we talked about, we've had a roundtable meeting here, and we've identified that's part of the issue, as well as a board of monitoring and making sure. Is this something that we'll be able to present to sort of a document saying this is the plan, this is some time frame, this is some things, so that we can help ourselves to help keep track and monitor. So you don't have to go, well, what about you're just presenting it to us, keeping track of it. I think.
So basically, in essence, what they're asking for is the written plan for, the things that we're going to maybe provide as part of their improvement plan. Is that what you're asking for?
Is there some time frames of when,
of when we might be able to address some of these and start this, like when is it going to happen?
Correct.
That's something we absolutely will discuss.
You'll be a part of the staffing discussion
Yeah.
anyway, because we already staffing to you guys, so you'll see that in real time. But the other things, to answer your question, we can do something that's updated. Maybe part of the document that we're already going to be, Courtney's going to be following anyway, so yeah.
And I hear, I'm kind of thinking off what Ms. Williams said earlier, that, we can all have this discussion here as adults and committees and groups and so forth, but the ones that actually make are the children. And I see that, and I was like, well, I never thought about that if all those children are being tested, all your labs are taken care of, then here I am, a non-Spanish, child and speaking there, and I got to get some work done, and I got to do some research, and I have nowhere to go, okay, what about me? Where's that, where can I go, to get that done? Oh, wait a couple days, and it'll free up in a couple days, and then it just doesn't happen. Things like this, mobile labs or something, or, I don't know, some options, I don't know, figure that out there. Those kids suffer and have to wait.
Yes, and we're working on being one-to-one in all of our classrooms, meaning the number of kids that have access to devices, and so we're one-to-one in 5th and 4th, but of course that also, takes money, and so we're working on providing that because they do have access to that. A lab would just make it easier to access in masses and give us more options of what we can do to intervene with some of our language students.
And so you had mentioned you're meeting the follow-up with district-wide ELL trainings. Are those trainings given by the district staff or trainings that you have
No, those are trainings that Patty Kintu does a great job of bringing in experts.
Right.
And so those experts are who we're asking and who I'm asking to come back and also do some follow-ups just on our campus as on an individual basis. Or maybe, of course, other campuses that also have that same need. We have a new framework that's coming to us, and we're going to be trained on that, my particular group in May. And so once we do that and look at what those trainings are going to entail over the course of the year, we'll be speaking with our ELL assigned person to also talk about what else can we do to follow up with this on our campus. And they're very good about providing that.
Okay. Dr. Marshall, so exciting to say that from way back when. So I'm going to just wrap up with what I heard, and you can correct me if I miss some of the things. I heard you say about having a high ELL population, having over 700 students ESL or ELL. I heard you talk about read alouds and all of the things that you guys are doing, checking for understandings, common thing. But the differentiated learning, using small groups, that's something that I think is unique, and I'm kind of, proud that you guys found another way of doing it, because typically, when you say that, most whole campus goes to something like that, and it looks different. It does look different. So doing it in small groups is a wonderful thing. I also heard you talk about the 14 different clubs that you have, having capital charities, having comment coming into your campus. You said 100% apartment dwellers, so that we know, and you didn't say the mobility word. I know that the board is not getting cringing on the mobility word, but you did say that. But you did say 100% apartment dwellers, which we know that mobility exists in that area. You also talked about the tribes. I kind of like that M3. I think I might steal that, take it to my campus. Keeping the classroom small is a good thing. But the block scheduling, what would that look like for you? What does that entail? I think, Ava, that question would go to you. If the campus said that they wanted to go block, is that possible, or does it take?
Well, that's certainly a conversation that we have to have, because it does entail, budget money. So that would mean potentially adding teacher units. And so, as Mr. Chambers said, we did have that conversation. We're having that conversation because he does understand that that is a desire and a need, and all of the pros of having teachers be able to block versus being self-contained.
All righty. The other thing that I wanted to share that I thought was very interesting was the fact that you talked about professional developments that happen throughout the district. When we're looking at the Effective School Framework, it talks about not only having a professional development, but it also talks about being able to have modeling happen. And I think it's, Danbury Santori talks about practice, practice, practice. So I would be more interested in hearing about where the practice happened. We know that at the beginning of the year, everyone gets eaten up by all of the professional developments, but mid-year, it's almost like you forgot what was going on because that practice piece did not happen. And I know Patty brought that information to us, and Ms. Cantu, I've been reading, it's not Patty, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry, not Patty. Patty didn't bring it. My other friend, I'm sorry. I'm bad on names right now. Natalie, I'm so sorry. Natalie brought that information to us during the board retreat. Natalie talked about the Effective School Framework, and I've been doing quite a bit of digging and research and study on that. So I thought it was kind of interesting when you talked about the professional developments. I know that Alief does a great job in that, but most of your districts suffer because there's not enough time for practice. People are busy doing the work, but they haven't had an opportunity to test it out. So I look forward to hearing, what happens in that area as well. Okay. Thank you so very much. Is there anyone else? Thank you so very much, Dr. Warren, for sharing your information.
Thank you. So I'd like to introduce our third principal for the evening, Mrs. Kristen Cregan from Sneed Elementary.
Good evening, board. I'm glad I wore my tennis shoes if I'm going to be up here for a while. So thank you for allowing me to come and share some of the different things we're doing at Sneed this year to address our needs. When I was thinking about what I needed to share with you and how I wanted to paint the story of Sneed, I really wanted to stay true to the work that we are using our turnaround plan for. I was working on a first-year principal. I was fortunate to be able to be the assistant principal at the same campus last year, so I was part of the development of the turnaround plan. We did a very deep root cause analysis using a lot of data last year to develop this plan, and it's been very important for me to stick to it because in uncovering the root causes, we know that these are things that we're going to do differently now. They're going to impact our student achievement. So if we keep doing the same thing, we're going to get the same results. This plan allowed us to develop new structures and processes and systems on campus that were going to allow us to move forward and start making some progress. So one of the first things we did was develop the instructional cycle. So it was a unified way of teachers to plan using data, and for coaches to go in and do walkthroughs and give specific feedback for developing teachers in certain areas. So the reflection piece is very big, the coaching piece is very big between the specialists and the teachers. And as you've heard from the other two principals, we have 71% of our students are also English language learners. Over 50% of our campus is bilingual. However, just this week, we had an amazing handbook that we were able to use as a model. I believe you have a copy of our handbook. It is an ongoing document. It is online, it's a Google Doc. Our Above and Beyond Committee continues to work at developing our systems and structures. I had a paraprofessional say to me last year when we were first developing the handbook that she felt like, she had been at Sneed a very, very long time, and she felt like, for example, we completely redesigned our dismissal system. She said in her 15 years of being at Sneed, dismissal had never run so smoothly. And it goes to safety, it goes to systems, it's just routine and order, and it's really helped, it just really did save our instructional time as well. Next steps for understanding poverty systems. I do have 20 staff members now who are attending Eric Jensen, working with students of poverty in San Antonio this summer. It's a 3-day training. Eric Jensen provides an excellent training. He has written 3 books on the subject, and Ruby Payne is, of course, the expert on that subject. Those 20 staff members have agreed to lead book studies for those 4 books over the next school year with the entire staff. So all staff members have a choice of which book they want to study, and those 20 staff members that are attending Eric Jensen will facilitate that work next year as part of our desire to have all staff members develop their strategies at working with our neediest kids. Teacher quality, as we know, teachers are the front lines, and they're the front lines. Without quality teachers, we're not going to get anywhere with instruction. Through the coaching partnership and the coaches getting stronger, we've developed strong instructional and psychosocial awareness from teachers, and they're getting stronger at teaching basic literacy through the work they're doing with their literacy coaches. I know earlier this year I spoke at one of the board meetings saying I do believe that we have a literacy problem at Sneed. We have a foundational literacy problem. Our kids are not entering 3rd grade knowing how to read, and that is a huge priority for me. I know that we need to get 3rd and 4th grade passing this test, but it's a huge priority for me to at the same time lay the foundation with our pre-KK 1 and 2 teachers. It's a personal goal of mine that by the year 2020-2021, over 80% of our returning 3rd graders will be reading on level. So with that in mind, I hired a literacy coach for 4th grade that works directly with our 4th grade reading teachers, modeling, professional development, coaching in the moment as they're teaching small group instruction, because our 4th grade reading scores were our worst scores last year. So it was helped to prioritize 4th grade. I have another literacy coach out of Region 4 who's working directly with our 1st grade teachers. Those teachers are getting incredibly strong at guided reading. I'm very proud of the work they put into that. And that is that group that I want reading on level by 2021. That's that group. Next steps, 12 pre-K and kinder teachers will attend balanced literacy training this summer. And I'm hoping that the Region 4 coach, who's been incredible, will be able to return for 2nd and 3rd grade for next year, so that all of our teachers will build their capacity to work in those areas. Our families show up. I'm going to tell you, our families show up. We have our Spark Park. We are the heart and soul of that community. We are surrounded. We're in a little corner. Love you to come by. We have, in fact, drive by at night. You'll see we have new soccer goals out there, and the families are out there walking their babies and playing on the playground and playing soccer. The teams are out there playing soccer. Our families come out. We felt like we weren't communicating well with families as far as how to help with academics. We would get them out for all of our fun things, and they're in the building, and they're in our parent center, but we wanted to be more direct with them on how to work with their kids for academics. One of the things that we've done is during our quarterly coffees with the principal, we focused on certain academic areas. So for the 1st quarter, we did all things technology, showed them how to look at their child's grades, showed them how to get on PlayStation from home, iReady from home, how to access a system we have called MyOn, which is books online. So we did everything technology, and then our 4th grade students came and showed them how to do it, how easy it was to go through the Alief Hub and to get into a lot of our programs. The 2nd quarter focused on all things reading. So we had Houston Public Library out. We taught parents how to do read-alouds. We taught them how to check out books from our libraries. They have plenty of books at home. We focused on all things literacy. The We got smarter at our third quarter. We usually have about 40 to 50 parents show up, which I feel is good. Most of our parents work, they work hard, so it's hard to come during the day. But during our third coffee with the principal, we did ethics, mathematics. Math specialists did a fantastic job of showing parents all things about bar models and all of those new ways of doing math that none of us learned. They did a fantastic job. We actually live streamed it on Facebook, and today we've got 221 views. So we feel like we're reaching more of our families through social media. We want to continue that work next year. We feel like that's just a huge way for us to reach a lot of families without actually getting them in the door, but we can still get our message out to them. Fortunately, we've also been fortunate to partner with Copydome for 2 years, so we've had several hundred families impacted by free laptops provided for them that are refurbished and training for the families on how to use them. So now they've got the refurbished laptops, and we focus on those on 4th grade families. I know Ludwig did the same thing this year, so that's our feeder school, so those are also impacting our families because they're receiving them at Ludwig. So now they've got the way to get the laptops to get into the programs, and we've taught them how to get into the programs, so we definitely help our students in every way. But so we do have a great turnout for all family events. We've recently, in the last 3 weeks, I'm very proud of this, had 2 very positive reviews of our campus on Facebook that mentioned specific staff members. Our staff members work really, really hard, and to have families just name them by name and say, my children are excited to come to school at Sneed because of this teacher. Made them feel very proud of the work that they do. So we do have a happy partnership with our families. We're going to continue to build on those communication opportunities. Just as the other principals shared, our teachers work so hard. We do make it a point to honor them through all kinds of, it's been a hard week of testing. I've been thinking Taco Tuesday. I'm feeling Taco Tuesday coming on. It's been a hard week. So last week was hard. Let's get them going this week. So we do monthly, at least monthly, pick-me-ups of some kind to make them feel special. My entire team is very committed to when we see something good happening, we say something, we write a note. Nothing can replace someone telling you that you're doing a good job and being very specific about it. Sure. So that's the most important thing of all in building those relationships. We are in the process of implementing restorative practices. We've had a huge increase in special needs students this year. Sneed has done child find very, very, very well. Just yesterday, we have a huge increase in the number of autistic children who are in general education at Sneed that have high social emotional needs. Nicole Roberts, I requested it, and she made it happen in 2 weeks. Today is National Autism Awareness Today, as a lot of people know. Yesterday we had a staff meeting training, and I asked Nicole, can you provide an autism training for my staff? And they did, and they provided it beautifully yesterday. So it was a quick overview, it's only an hour, there's a lot to learn. We're going to continue with those special trainings on helping our neediest kids. 42 of our 51 classroom teachers are definitely returning, and I'm pretty proud of this number. Another 6 said they are staying unless they get accepted to dual language within the district, or they get accepted for a full-day pre-K, or they get a specialist position. So I'm counting on maybe 45 or 46 of those 51 coming back. The others, 1 is tired, she's just tired, 2, and 1 is retiring, and 2 did not give me a reason. So I'm hoping for very minimal turnover this year. All of my specialists are returning, all of my interventionists are returning, all of my block teachers are returning, all of my paras are returning. So I'm very, very proud of that. So we're going to continue to work on making sure we're clear in our communication and support our staff all the time. Like my fellow principals, I would like to keep class sizes small. I received my staffing and I had some concerns. I'm projected to go up by 60 students, but I was cut by 2 teachers. So I was confused about that. I did, currently I have 6 bilingual classrooms in 3rd grade. They are all sitting at 21 and 22 students. I'm projected as only needing 5 bilingual classrooms for 4th grade next year. When you do the math, that's a 25.6 student-teacher ratio if all students return. our students return. And if our families move out, another family with a lot of kids moves in. So I have a lot of concerns about that. I need 6 bilingual 4th grade teachers. I can't start the year with 25 kids in 4th grade. 4th grade bilingual is extremely difficult to hire for. It'll be very hard for me to add that position once we start, if our numbers are that big. So I did email Stacey French with my concerns about that. So we need our, especially our 3rd and 4th grade classrooms, so those teachers can be very targeted in their instruction. Zoning for the bilingual program I have put on here. We are busting out of the seams. We're projected at 1,133 students next year. I have not one empty classroom. As I don't know if you're aware, we have Kivas, the round old theaters. I have my entire ESL department is in my Kiva, my entire specialist team, offices in the science lab, which also serves as the PLC room. I have not one empty classroom, and the portables are not workable for classrooms. I use the portables. I've got the Parent Center, ABL, action-based learning block class, and our second PE out there. But they're not workable for classrooms. I would, eventually I would like to add full-day pre-K. I'm excited that's coming to our district. I think it's needed. At this point, I honestly don't know how I would do it at Sneed. So we do have approximately 250 bilingual students on our campus that are bused over from another zoned area. There are other classrooms sitting empty in other buildings that are just as close as we are. So I would like to have that looked at to try to reduce our numbers. I want to continue to hire the outside literacy coaches, and we would love to have you visit. And I really want to thank you for adding our 3rd AP. Sorry, Courtney. It has helped tremendously with my assistant principals and myself, the 4 of us being able to really coach teachers true to T-test because we have the additional time to do that. So we did have an intern at Sneed, but she was not able to do teacher supervision, so she wasn't able to do evaluation and keep up with their the coaching process as T-test allows you to do. So I just want to thank you for that. That's been really helpful.
Okay, board. Questions? Ms. T, do you have any questions, or are you still taking notes? Thompson?
Still taking notes, I'm good.
Okay, thank you.
I want to thank you for great presentation. I just about for a minute, but good info, things you gotta feel, and this is exactly reviewing my thoughts from the last board meeting and so forth. This is exactly the way I process it. Let Ms. Rowe and those do with the data and all that, so forth. But I'm feeling it. I'm feeling the heart. I think Ms. Canales said, that's exactly of the feel that's going on at the campus. My question again goes to this last page, again to HD, is if we, the monitoring, when these questions come up, great ideas, great specific things to Sneed that's going to help you continue to maybe turn that around and build, on that. When the discussions began, how's the process? Are you getting the support, up the level, all the way to us as a board to do this? And I think that in 10 years, I've been on 10 years, and the first time I've really hear from the campuses at this kind of this level, and I really wish, earlier could have been done. It's an open process for you to be concerns, and the autonomy. And sometimes I know I had conflicts sometimes with in the past of like, wait a minute, the campuses don't need that much autonomy. They we need to help them. But hearing the 3 of you and how y'all are handling your specific campus, your specific problems, your specific issues, and working it up. We have the people in the right place. It's just where do we as upper build support you and monitor and get you the resources and the ideas and the structure to help you turn that around.
Right. And I do want to speak to the central support. When I got transferred to Sneed last year, I think it was the end of January, on Thursday or something, I don't know. It was quite a ways into the school year. I realized that for the first day ever of being on that campus, walking around, I did not see someone from Central. So I literally, for the first 5 months of school, every single day had seen someone from Central on my campus, and that continues to this day. Today I saw our school improvement specialist, I saw ESL, Andrea Grajeda was out. There is somebody every day that is there supporting, walking, observing, giving us feedback, working with my specialists, working with the administrators. Earl Snyder's directly coaching 4th grade teachers. They're giving us all the support we need. If I pick up the phone and have any human resources issues, Stacy's back to me like that, Stacy Frenchwood. I mean, we are receiving the support, and they are present on our campuses.
One of the things, thank you so much. And so, and for all of you all, I like this last page, like what you all said for each, like, this is what I need, because that is so differentiated between each campus. So I thank you for that. Also, I see that all of you all said keep class sizes small. So that speaks to us, in regards to when we get at the beginning of the year and these class size waivers and things like that. See, these are the things that we need to hear from you. So that when we have to make these decisions, then we will keep this in mind when these things come up again, because this is clearly very important to each of your campuses. So I appreciate you all adding that piece in.
So I want to say thank you for the hard work, that data that I've seen the growth. It speaks volumes, especially when I see that you're keeping your teachers. So not high turnover, despite the fact that this campus is really growing and changing over the course of a few years, and you put some real procedures and policies into place. But my one question actually is, when I was looking at your plan, and you talked about your communication with parents and how you were getting them more involved in academics. How did you go about doing that? Like, what was your methodology by what you said, let me get parents involved? Because I know that we talk about parent engagement and how it plays a huge process, but you specifically said we were doing this to address it through academics.
Okay, so I wrote this quote down. I'm not the author of this, so I can't take credit for that. But it's, we would like parents to be involved at school. We need parents to be involved at home. And I read that over last summer. And I realized that we had parents that came to school all the time. But they didn't really, but I think Dr. Marshall said, they don't come for academic nights because they're kind of intimidated maybe a little bit by the curriculum. They don't understand it. Like I was a language arts specialist as well. I am not going to help a 4th grader with a bar model. And a parent that feels that same way is not able to help their child with their homework or able to even be a part of that process. So last year we did have coffee with the principals when I was the assistant principal, but it was more just kind of a meet and greet, have some pastries, have some talks, question and answers, maybe go over the calendar. I really came in with the idea after reading that quote last summer that we needed to be more focused in how to empower parents to help their children. A lot of these parents came to this country that are in our schools for a better life for their children, and they don't know how to help them. And we might be the only connection, that bridge that can get them there in even small ways, like just how to do a read aloud, how to check out a book from my library and read to your child before they go to bed. So it's just, we have parents there. We just need to figure out the ways to get through to them and empower them to do that.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Is there anything else? Okay.
Thank you.
I'm going to share my little things with you.
Oh,
I just have a few. I know, that's why I'm not going to let you stand for long. That's why we're going to glamorous song. I like those. I wanted to say that I saw immediately, going back to the effective school framework, I saw immediately what you were talking about as far as for data analysis, planning, and reflection and delivery. So I know that when I see those things in a block that way, I know that it's very intentional about what you're doing. And then the the fact that you have a coach from Region 4, that means a lot. I heard you say something about that coach, is it that coach coaching people, 2 teachers per day, or is it your other coaches are also coaching?
So my specialists are coaching 1 to 2 teachers at any given time that they have identified and who are willing to be coached. Because a big discussion we had is people need to be willing to be coached. We need to grow the people that want to grow. Now, as far as the Region 4 coach, she's working with my 1st grade team right now, and she did some tremendous professional development with them on balanced literacy, and then has them filming their guided reading sessions, and at times has come in and live coached them as they've taught their guided reading lessons, has modeled guided reading lessons, and has really strengthened that team in their lesson delivery and their differentiation.
Okay. So with the videos, are you guys using those videos in your professional developments on your campus to kind of encourage those who might not have wanted to, be coached, and then the videos?
Yeah, we have not yet. I think that would be a great next step, would be to use the outstanding things that we are filming during PLC and in further discussions with people to see that there is power in that, if they would be more willing to open up to the process.
Okay. And the last 2 things was the fact that you talked about the math strategies that you guys put forth, and you said it was on Facebook as well.
Yeah, so my tech specialist, it actually came just spur of the moment. She ran and got a camera, she goes, let's try this, and she live streamed it on Facebook, and then of course we sent out the links, and at last view, it was like 221 views. So now I don't know, I'm hoping that's our families. I have no way of, I have no way of knowing. I'm hoping it's our families, but we hope to build on that.
I think the greatest impact was when you stated recognizing your teachers, finding ways to recognize your teachers. That might be one of the things that made 42 or 51 say, I'll be here, because I often hear that that's not done enough. I know that everyone have great intentions, but when your head is buried doing the work, sometimes you forget, like you say, to send that note to say thank you. So I appreciate all your efforts and everything that you share. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. So I just want to close by once again thanking our principals for being here and presenting their stories. I want to just point out that, in addition to Kristen being a new principal, she also battled with cancer earlier this year. And so she has had her plate full. I know all of us have a lot going on, and then we also have to know what's really most important too is just being our healthy selves. And so I'm really grateful for all of these wonderful leaders, and especially for the health of all of them as well. As Dr. Page said at the beginning, and as our visual shows, this is a maze. This is a lot of twists and turns, but it's really also encompassed by our hearts, by the hearts of our staff, our community, all of our support staff here at Central Office, the board, of course. And I encourage you, if you haven't had a chance to visit these campuses, please do so. I think it's one thing to see pictures and to have these wonderful discussions, but to walk through the halls and see the teachers and all this work in action is another, I guess, just opportunity for you to really understand all the great work and heart that's going on in these campuses. So we'll continue this conversation on April 16th, our next board meeting, when we hear from our final 3 priority campus principals at Cummings and Landis and Horn. So we look forward to continuing this conversation then.
And I would say to those principals that came through tonight, share with them that this is real conversation that we're having, and we really appreciate the transparency.
We have 2 of them here.
I'm so sorry. I'm just focused.
I'm just tell us what you want.
Thank you so very much to the principals that are here.
I want to remind the board of something. There's a question, I can't remember who, Rick, you may have asked it, I can't recall if you asked it or not, but you asked about how long has this been on your mind, like these, whatever the hell has it been on your mind? And I think we all need to be reminded that what schools across the state of Texas are going through right now, obviously ours as well, is new. Testing is not new. But what is happening is the re-emphasizing of a single test is changing a lot of people's behavior. So when you start looking at what the way approaches meets and masters is structured, that's a change for all of us in terms of how we have to look at it. So I think some of the things when they say, well, it just started this year, for whatever the issue may be, I think part of the reason, if not the entire reason, is because we're having to look at all of this new from the ground up. And I don't know, I'll just tell you quite bluntly, I'm not sure how I feel about some of the revisiting, focusing around a single test and how much effort and energy is going into passing a test, fully realizing the importance of the test. And I think that's part of what we're attempting to do is and what these ladies and everyone in this district is attempting to do is to push the reset button and how we react and how we address it. So some of the things you may see are going to be kind of new requests because they've never really been in the solution has never really been needed until now.
But I guess it was my question and to allow the principals to hear and the conversation that we've been having for quite a long time, and as soon as you know as well as I have been on the board for over 10 years, is that there's almost a process. I don't want to try to keep saying that paint the district with a brush. We're painting all the campuses the same way. Obviously, listening to 3 campuses, within just a few miles from each other on the same side of the beltway, they're totally different animals, that are happening there in their own separate needs and so forth. I don't know if it's in the past or we haven't had these type of discussions, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 8 years ago, where the principals could come up and go, this is the issues I'm having. I'm not so much worried, it's at Bobette's. I'm not really worried about what's happening, at Collins or at Sneed or at Chancellor or wherever. This is what I need for my campus. This is what I need to do. If you're invite me to educate these children and to work with my staff and develop this team, this is what I need in order for me to be successful. And have that discussion coming forward and having us as a board having that meaningful discussion to go, okay, well, yeah, we listen to you, we do this and try to work those particular. Where in the past we've never had those discussions. It was like, okay, if you're going to get, free lunch, whatever, then everybody's going to get it. Well, maybe that school doesn't need free lunch, because they have the money and they need that money something else or do some work something else. And so that's just kind of what I guess I'm going for. And I just wondered if these discussions have happened, 3 years ago, 4 years ago, and they just didn't feel comfortable coming forward because it was just the way Alief did it for over 10 years. I can't speak for past my time, but over 10 years, this is the way it's been done. So, I'd like to express for those 3 principals, the other 3 principals, the other ones that are, the other 40 that are out there, these are kind of discussions that we're going to want to hear, even at the higher level, middle schools, intermediate schools, because it's not just happening at the elementary level, Does that make sense? That's a word. And I'm just one of 7, one of 5 here today, but, I don't know how y'all feel. About the same as Williams or Natasha?
And one of the things that I wanted to mention that Rick did say is about changing. So, as A.J. Crable says, the student outcomes won't change until adult behaviors change. Mm-hmm. And when I look at the things that you all are doing on your campuses and how you're reacting to the data and all of that and asking for the things that you need, that tells me that we're moving in the direction of changing those student outcomes. And so I would like to see that same changing adult behaviors as we move up the ladder to make sure that we are reacting to your needs based on the things that you've shared here. And HDI, one of the things that you mentioned is, we're centering around one particular test. I agree that we need to broaden the scope and look at the other things that go into what our district is doing well. But we also, the bottom line is the state is.
Thank you.
That's what we're looking at. So
Thank you.
instead of kind of moving that out of the way, we have to
Mhm.
say, okay, how can we
Come on now.
incorporate that and figure out how we're going to make this work? We're, looking at domain 2, we're looking at student growth. If all of our kids may not be able to get to pass, if you're looking at for domain 1, but how are we doing with growing?
Come on now.
How are we doing with sustaining that over grade levels? How are we graduating these students and they're successful into college? Looking at all of that. But we can't just, we have a lot of disagreements on the test and the reading ability, but we also have to remember the state right now is looking at that test.
There you go.
And so we need to do what we need to do to make sure that we nail that.
Yeah, trust me, that's not lost on me.
Just one last comment that I know, again, we're talking about the class sizes and so forth, and the 3 presentations for today, one of the big issues we're hearing about, kids aren't ready when they come to 3rd, 4th grade for the test, and it's an issue. So I think at one campus, I think Dr. Marshall, we talked about, getting them early and working with those early grades, and I think Sneed as well, doing that. And that's been a focus of, we talk about birth to 3rd, getting them early and trying to get out there and work with their families at home and, getting them ready. So, they're, regardless of what the STAR testing said, they're supposed to be at 5th grade level, but they're in 2nd grade or 3rd grade, that whole thing is one that's out there, the alignment, misalignment. But, so yeah, we do hear that. And so that's been one of our focus discussions, is getting those kids ready so you're ready in 3rd grade and the teachers aren't stressed because they're not going to teach 2 years behind. Thank you.
So, well, I have a question of HD. So, for our staffing plan, right, we typically get a staffing plan where it's all listed together for how many positions that we need. Can we see these 6 schools, since they're going to give us, 3 of the 6 have said we need these kinds of staffing needs. Can we see those specifically to ensure that when we have to go vote on the staffing plan, we see those things? And as far as like Sneed saying that they're busting out the seam for enrollment, have we looked at, using some bond money to, add a classroom or those kind of things? So I think we need to stay mindful of what they're asking for and what their needs are, and making sure that when we get ready to have data presented to us, that those things are shown in a very real way for us to understand. Are you giving them that 1 AP, those 2 interventionists, those 3 teachers, so that we can see that on this campus?
I know it's been a long night. After listening to the presentations and stuff, just wondering if there's a way we can, not to delay too much longer with these other presentations, waiting, but to go to the executive session and talk about this particular before we move on to the next section. This is my thoughts. I don't know how if that's possible with Ms. Sneed,
So, if I hear you correctly, we'd like to go into executive session, which does not, I don't think, requires any of the principals, right? All righty, so under 55.1.075 to receive information. So before we go into executive session at 8:43.
So we probably will try to limit so we can know your time up in here all day.
Thank you so much again, Principal Bushon. Give it to Laura.
Pick up the screen and carry her in there.
Just leave her there. She can't.
So we'll call her back?
Yeah, we'll call her back.
Can you tell me how a school live streams the video? Gotcha. I said, you tell me how school live streams the video.
Requirements of comparability that tell us to allocate the students based, allocate the teaching units based on our enrollment. We also have supplement, not supplant requirements. So on the supplement, not supplant side, this is kind of new, the way the federal government is implementing those guidelines. You can change allocations and the way you allocate staff to campuses, but it all needs to be documented. So our baseline and what we're starting with right now is applying strict ratios. We'll continue to, as we determine our revenue sources and as we determine how to reallocate the resources we have, adjust staffing as we've heard clearly about various needs at campuses. The 3 we heard from tonight, as well as other campuses in the district. So moving on to intermediate, our ratio there is 24:1 for 5th and 6th grade students. We're staffing for 193 less students next year. That would be a reduction in 6 teaching units. Middle school, 7th and 8th, we staff at 20:1, and we're projecting for 116 less students. That would be a reduction of 8 units. And when I say reduction in teaching units, this is not firing campuses or doing any sort of reduction in force. We have more teacher turnover than all these add up to, so this is just not replacing positions based on the number of students that are anticipated next year. High school, at 9th grade, we staff at 19.5:1. At 10 through 12, 22.5:1. We do have a request for 8 additional CTE units that we're tentatively building into the process, but we're waiting for them to go through a course selection process to make sure that we'll be able to fill up the classrooms for those additional teaching units. The overall high school ratio, including those additional CTE and 5 fine arts unit, is 18.9:1. Overall reduction at high school would be 6 teaching units. So as I've said, we're continuing to review personnel allocations, and we will be making additional staffing considerations based on specific campus needs. So we talked about that a little bit tonight with the principals, and Best Elementary talking about their ABL program. Several years ago, we added an ABL facilitator at Best to help with that. We've also added additional counselor unit, additional AP unit, and an additional behavior specialist. Collins Elementary, talking about their large refugee population and their large number of ELL students. We have allocated an additional unit to Collins for refugees, students in particular, and they receive an allocation of 4 ESL lead teachers, whereas other campuses receive 3. So we have made adjustments to campuses over time based on specific needs. Sneed Elementary, we added that 3rd AP unit last year. So those are the kind of things we look at when I say additional staffing consideration based on specific needs, and I know we're going to need to continue to do that this year. We do have the request that was submitted by Sneed Elementary for that 3rd AP unit, and that is one of the things under evaluation. Sneed also receives 2 additional teachers for their refugee students. So we have reviewed those on a preliminary basis with Superintendent's Council. Most of those decisions have been left pending, waiting to get additional information, waiting to find out what funds we have available, waiting to see if we'll get additional revenue to pay for some of the additional needs, or whether it will be a matter of reallocation from one place to another to make the dollars work out. We also look at non-teacher ratio-based campus positions by every campus. APs, we typically use a chart showing free and reduced lunch status, mobility, number of special ed programs on the campus, number of ELL students, as well as enrollment to make allocations for
assistant principals. Then we also look at paraprofessionals, block specialists, and ESL, and those will come forward as we move through the process. Special ed is the other big area. We know we've seen increases in the number of special education students, so we're continuing to review staffing requests from Nicole on that. And then just overall, one of the other big cost drivers in our budget is always the salary increase. You know, we weren't able to afford a salary increase for this current year. A 1% salary increase is about $2.7 million. We've had some questions from campuses and heard some talk out of there, out of campuses and other places about Senate Bill 3, passed out of the Senate, hasn't passed out of the House yet. It's not a done deal. That provides a $5,000 raise for classroom teachers and librarians, and that raise will be funded for the state for those groups, just the teachers and librarians. So in Alief, with about 3,139 teachers, that would be additional funding from the state of $15.7 million in order to provide that raise for just teachers and librarians. But as Charles would have covered during his legislative update, the House has their comprehensive school finance bill being heard tomorrow. The Senate has talked only in detail really about this Senate Bill 3 and across the board raise for all teachers, and some Senate Bill 2, which is property tax caps. So we'll continue to work through the process through the end of May when they go into conference committee, and hopefully come out with something that will generate additional funding for the many needs that we have in Alief. That $5,000 flat amount is an 8.3% on the midpoint for teachers and librarians. And that's all I have for tonight. Are there any questions?
Just one quick comment is I know each principal talked about one of their considerations, one of the dream list is the smaller classroom sizes. And I guess one question I didn't ask them was what's the smaller classroom size? I know we're not 25 in one. I mean, we're not maxed. I mean, we're looking at 22. You know, and if it goes to 23, you're maybe adding another to bring that down. What is the smaller size? Do you know, Steve, what they would, I mean, live? I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know what they're.
I know I've heard numbers coming from instruction about 14.
No, no.
That's not realistic.
No, we know that's not realistic.
Right.
And in all honesty, while I've not had that specific conversation, like how many, students in the classroom, I think they're talking definitely under 22. About 18 to 20 kids. When you start getting up above 20 to 22, they know that as kids move in, then they add another kid to that grade level, that's 23, that type of thing. So we've not had those conversations, but we certainly can.
And that's not every teacher, every classroom.
No.
Some experienced teachers are like, 22, yeah, I can handle that.
Exactly, and so we know.
Some extra support, and they have that one that had 7 languages, I think, in that one classroom, and then they had special ed, and then they had, 4.
Yeah. That's where we need to have the conversations, more detailed conversations with the principals, because, what are we talking? Are we talking primary grades, or are we talking just our intermediate grade levels? When I say intermediate and elementary, I mean like 3rd, 4th, and then at Collins, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. Those are little nuances.
At your next budget presentation, every couple weeks or whatever, I guess, let me do this, maybe through some numbers in there and see what that's. Yeah, that's what I said,
We will have more information on some of the items that came up today, do some preliminary looks at the block requests and where specifically they would want block versus not. It's very expensive to do.
And I guess I want to go on my team on record, and I know because it seems like tonight, so I'll focus on those 6 campuses or those 3 campuses tonight, and then in a couple weeks it'll be those other 3. And what about the other 40 campuses? I don't want the other 40 campuses to watch the video and say, oh, all they care about are those 6 campuses. No, that's not. I like to see how that would be and have that discussion with other campuses,
And just know, I do have a advisory council I meet with. I have about 10 elementary intermediate principals that I meet with, and this conversation came up, just the idea of blocking at a meeting that I had with that group last week. And so there were 3 principals who shared with me, when we're talking about blocking, well, while that works for some, I do have several teachers on my campus that prefer to be self-contained, and they're strong and they're good, they like it, it's working. So they didn't want us to paint them with the same brush and say, you gotta block. Exactly what I'm just saying. They didn't. So we have to respect that. So we were listening to some of the things that they were sharing about, some flexibilities and things that they would like for us to consider. That's the kind of conversations that we are having with the principals, because we're realizing, we need to make some adjustments and master schedule. I remember when we did have master schedule, when master schedule came in. And so we were listening and thinking, what can we do, what do we need to do, especially with the new reading adoption that we will be using next year. So lots of different things that are being adjusted.